Hello and welcome to another episode of Alf Zoo, our weekly show here on Google Hangout about ITSM in a modern IT world. Today I have Chris Dancy with me.
Hello, Elf. I'm a magical unicorn. I thought we were talking about social IT, so I would bring something as magical as me.
As you can tell, Chris Dancy is a very famous, very renowned figure in the social media world. You probably followed him on Service Fair. He
You
also
probably did.
have He also have a weekly the ITCM weekly podcast, which has about 40,000 downloads a month.
Yeah, that's
And
popular. That's not like me. That's actually popular.
and he is the brand in social IT. So I welcome him to my show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, unlike you, my friend, I'm more of a skeptic to this whole
Mm,
social IT
mm,
and social media in general to some
mm.
degree. I've seen its value here and there, but I don't necessarily see how enterprises can turn it into a profitable operation anytime soon. So, can you help me and many of my viewers understand what social IT really is and what is the value that that brings?
So, social IT is really like the culmination of a bunch of different concepts that are marketing buzz terms. So everything from mobile to consumerization. I mean, it's just craziness. If you cut it down to its lowest denominator, social IT is the ability for everyday stock and line employees to have access to tools and technology and processes that they either are endorsed explicitly for or they secretly do under their desk. So you could say, I mean, there are a lot of people who like to talk about social IT as, the different facets of collaboration and all this really kind of big stuff. But I think, in a couple of years' time, we're going to see what all of these things actually were eliminating the middleman, which means if you're a middle manager, right, eliminating the middleman and empowering people at the lowest possible levels. That might look like collaboration. That might look like geotagging. That might look like reputation and scoring. That might look like gamification. But ultimately, if you as an employee are empowered to do things you didn't normally do, kind of like Alps Zoo, then you are embracing social IT or the idea of the empowered employee at the at every layer of the enterprise.
Yeah, no, this is solely our exercise in narcissism. What you see happening here has nothing to do with improving anyone's
Did you
bottom
get
line.
anyone's Did you get anyone's permission to do Alps Zoo?
Not necessarily, no.
There you go. Then what you did was you took technology at your disposal and created an extension to your work life. You are the embodiment of social IT. So let's get real skeptical now that you know you are the thing you don't believe in.
So the Google Hangouts have become to some degree what Amazon is to the IT department. This is for what marketing and communication can do in their world.
Yeah, yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, anytime you see someone doing something that isn't, you know, embraced by the organization, or they wonder, is there a policy or procedure around it? They are, in essence, creating a socialized version of it.
Mm.
I think social IT, if you really wanted to step back a bit, it's really more a form of, uh, socialism, right? It's the empowerment. It's except the big government is more of a cooperative of people who go, if I get fired for doing this, will you hire me? And that's really where it comes from.
So there's a bit of the tyranny of the masses there. If we're going to see the effect of social IT take hold,
Hmm.
we need adoption and participation. And I mean, if you
Those
talk
are
about
those are two wildly different 7-hour conversations. So, you know, you, the problem is everybody wants adoption, but nobody wants to consider foster parenting, right? And you really aren't ready to adopt, unless you've actually practiced, right? And I
Mhm,
think just like driving a car, you should probably have some practice.
mhm.
Adoption means that, okay, everybody's doing this. Well, that's not very a culturally sensitive thing to do,
No,
right?
no.
You just don't force adoption on people, and part of the fuddification of social IT is, well, if we gamify it, if we give someone points and buckets, then we can get adoption. And adoption really has to be a grassroots effort. Now, there are some people who will. use these social tools as soon as they're put in. But that just because you can use email doesn't mean you understand the power you wield in your hand. Right?
So when you go into organization or the organization you've been part of yourself,
yeah, I've done this.
How long?
I've actually done what we're talking about. So.
That's exactly. I wanted to know. So I wanted to have more of a concrete understanding. Is how long does it take to install Chatter or a Jive platform or whatever you have? Is one thing. That can take an afternoon. But to get people to go, and then for people to sign up and setting up their avatar, that's another step. But to get people to actually use these tools, how long is it? What type of timeline are you looking at, and what type of incentives and initiatives do you have to put in place?
So, you're fun. I should have done this a long time ago. So again, when you have a social IT initiative, I try to encourage people not to use things like objectives and timelines. Mm-hmm. Those are very, very business-centric thinking that kind of got us into the bad position we're in, right? Mm-hmm. So just installing the tool, you kind of had some very specific points there, right? So you install Chatter, right? Just installing or buying a tool actually doesn't really do much, because then some people use it, some people don't. Mm-hmm. I think it needs to add some value to my life for me to actually use it. We talk about social a lot and creating this kind of paradigm shift for value, but ultimately the value has to be recognizable for me, the employee, right? Mm-hmm. So in my experiences in helping organizations do this, and there have been some wildly successful ones. If you look at Coventry University, hey guys, up in the UK, they actually said, with the university, whether it's the faculty, their students, how do we reach them and give them a platform, right? So they did it very, very small chunks just to see what worked and what didn't work. Ultimately, social IT is more about listening than providing tools and policies and procedures and things that don't do that. So, I think if you give yourself a realistic expectation of what you're trying to do, you're trying to, give people other options or other choices, then you can measure that, right? So if you're one of these people who need to measure it, were we successful at giving people an option, right? Mm-hmm. So let's take a real simple example of a social IT concept, self-service. Mm-hmm. Right now, if I want to use self-service, I don't have many options. There's a portal, and there's a portal, and there's a portal, and it's the same thing. There's no options. There's nothing social about that. And adding a Chatter feed to self-service doesn't make it social, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Social would be there's the self-service portal, and there's something like not to push a product, but my IT, right? So my IT in some ways is an option. So mm-hmm. that's kind of social, right? Not once you create the element of choice, you have the first basis of social. Because I'm not going to be engaging, which is have a relationship, which is the concept of social, with anything that I can't choose.
So social has to have a sense of plurality for it to function?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to have Chatter, you need to have a competing platform. You just cannot have one. There's nothing social about giving people music to march to in their shackles. Okay, so they're still in shackles. You just gave them now music. All right, so now they're now they're imprisoned and have rhythm. That's not social.
So U.S. Postal Service was not a social media channel, if you will, when it was the incumbent, and it was the only thing around here before the Pony Express.
Oh yeah, I mean Pony Express. Now that the U.S. Postal Service is closing on Saturdays, probably a lot more people will use Saturday services like FedEx and UPS and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's the choice that makes things social, and I think that's where most people get caught up first. They think that just allowing or just providing a tool for people to collaborate is social. If an IT department then wanted to actually say, okay, now that we've given them two platforms to which to log an issue, what else can we give them choices around, right? Mm-hmm. So this comes down to a lot of the concepts that I think Service Catalog and Portfolio were supposed to address. The problem with those concepts is it's us making the decision, right? Everyone's all excited about BlackBerry, right? Now BlackBerry 10, now you can have this work or work profile or home profile. Well, again, IT holds the power there. They can say what the work profile and social, again, is the choice. I make the decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the, classic examples I use of social IT is, an iPad is about taking home to work.
Mm-hmm.
A Microsoft Surface tablet is about taking work home, right? There was no choice when they handed me a Surface tablet, right? But a choice, if they say to me, would you like a Surface tablet or an iPad, that's social in nature, right? So, empowerment starts with choice. And then the next level starts to come with when you design these processes. So let's, actually talk about the IT part of this, because everyone likes to talk about the fun part, the let's get people all chattery and using Google Hangouts part. And, well, that's cute, and that's a fun way to talk about nothing. But, ultimately, if I said, all right, so now I'm an IT department, we don't have a lot of people using this function. Like right now at the company, we have this event going on where, they're wondering, how come we know more people aren't doing this or getting involved? Well, because they have to go behind a VPN and they have to do all these and what you're asking people to do really doesn't need to be protected. Mm-hmm. So, again, we're not listening to the consumers. Part of service portfolio and in catalog is in the portfolio, we start to look for that life cycle approach, right? Mm-hmm. So, but how do we, if I can just ask you a question now, Alf, how do we know in the life cycle what we should be considering putting in to our catalog? What tools are we using to listen? Can I ask you?
The only strategy I ever heard was to look at all the incidents you've had over the last 6 to 9 months and use those as the main service and then build it from there. But
so again, we're going to look at every time someone had a vicious complaint and use that as a determiner and whether we need a new service.
Yes, it'd be a very good self-defense
That's
tool,
not reactive. That's suicide.
No, but this is the number one concern that we hear from customers when we talk to them in the market.
Right, and customers, I think the problem is we've done them a horrible disservice because we say to them, we don't give them actual ways to get this stuff done, right? Mm-hmm. I would like you to travel through time. We don't tell them about DeLoreans or 88 miles per hour. We just tell them, So again, if we think about the outcome, so what do we introduce in the IT equation to understand what our population needs so that we can create choices in something like a service catalog or a service request, right? Mm-hmm. And those platforms, right? Those tools that people might be using really come into play. And unfortunately in IT, in traditional IT, we're missing two paradigm shifts that happen to the rest of kind of the startup world. And that's systems of engagement versus systems of feedback, mm-hmm. right? Surveys have been our only weapon of feedback except for focus groups. And who wants to go and eat some $12 pizza bought by your manager for your opinion? My opinion isn't worth a $12 pizza. It's worth a $50 dinner. Take me to dinner, and I'll give you my opinion if you want a focus group at work, right? So
or watch Alf Zoo here on Google.
Or watch Alf Zoo. Alf Zoo gives you choices, right? It just okay. So, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Again, we don't have a feedback and an engagement platform, so that we can't do anything. So without an engagement platform, you just have a cardboard unicorn. That's all social IT is. Once you actually give people engagement and feedback, you actually have the unicorn meat. You've got the raw deal, right? And then you can start saying, okay, now I need this, and I need this, and I need this. So what is an engagement platform? Well, there's lots of things. I mean, Chatter is kind of an engagement platform, but probably not the best. Jive is really an engagement and a feedback platform. I think we'll see more and more social tools. I don't want to go and name, a bunch of people, that, because most people consider these tools to be, for the small business or for, not for us, being corporate IT. The reality is, if we look at corporate IT and we were honest with ourselves, because Alf Zoo is all about honesty, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have an honesty sound effect?
No, but no. And it's not that important either.
Okay. If we were actually honest with ourselves, then we'd know that most big organizations, each team has their own tools that no one knows they use to get stuff around.
Yeah.
All right. So again, there's nothing wrong with looking at consumer-based, small business-based tools to fill these niches. Yes. Until as an enterprise we say in IT, oh, wow, I didn't know you guys were using that. Why are you using that?
But that's how most technology grows. I mean, from Salesforce.com to, Twitter or whatever. They started in the small business. They're the only one who's crazy enough to try out.
Well, no, I mean, most of the people I know who used Salesforce back in 2006 were people who paid for it out of their own pocket and didn't tell their boss.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, and if you look at Amazon spinning up these clouds, I mean, it's happening not in organization. It's happening in small teams of 4 or 5 guys who need space right now, who need computing power right now. So
right.
So okay, so you're gonna. Why don't you name a couple of them? Don't worry about branding, so people know what type of platforms you're talking about. Because I think there's so much out there. It's so hard to get your hands on. So if you give us some example, then we can take a look at it, and then we can expand from there ourselves.
So again, I think a really good, very straightforward engagement / feedback system would be like a little company called Get Satisfaction, right? So again, brilliant concept. You can report a problem. You can share an idea. You can give praise. This is one of those things, again, I just will never understand. Once I saw it 4 years ago, and I had their CEO on the podcast 2 years ago, Wendy Lee, I said to myself, why aren't we doing this in IT? Self-service right now, if you look at self-service, you can do 2 things. You can beg for something new. Please, let me have this new product here I request. Or you can yell at someone, right? That's it. That's all you can do in self-service. But an engagement and feedback platform like Get Satisfaction, they give you 2 other options. They allow you to give praise, and they allow you to offer an idea. So the ability that my opinion when I go to the portal is important. It's not just complain or beg. It's complain, beg, say you're happy, or offer an idea. Suddenly my relationship to the system is different. Right? And I think, for the next level of kind of that very sticky social relationship, that's where we get into some of the kind of concepts I started talking about last year, which are starting to take hold this year, which is the quantification of the enterprise. I mean, right now, I wear a bunch of different sensors that record, all sorts of things, on me. But the reality is my HR department wants me to wear a sensor too. And if I wear a sensor for my HR department, what do they give us, Alf? Well, you're in Canada, right? You might not have this.
I'm not in Canada.
Where are you?
I'm in Lake Tahoe in California.
Why do I think you're in Canada? Did you used to be in Canada?
No, it's probably the accent.
Could you pretend you're from Canada?
Okay.
Okay. So, U.S. HR, right, for a lot of companies have these fitness programs, right?
Yeah.
And these fitness programs have you wear these devices to show that you're being active.
Yeah.
Right? What would we do if IT said, not only do you have to use our laptop, but you have to wear a device? But we've got no problem if HR asks us, because what do we get when what do we get if HR says, here's a device, wear it? We get a $600 discount.
Yes, okay. The lower healthcare premium in general, right?
Right. So if you're worried about my physical health, maybe you should worry, IT should worry about my intellectual health, right? And if you're going to give me a device, use that as your feedback. Was I happy during this transaction? Yeah, my blood pressure didn't go above 90, right? I just think there were ways that we could start to think about IT that we don't, I think, traditionally think about it. So Get Satisfaction.
Sorry. Wouldn't that be hold true for any cross-team interaction? Marketing and sales could interact like this. Sales and warehousing or supply chain could interact like that. Is that only for IT, or could we see that across the whole enterprise?
You nailed it. It's across the whole enterprise. It's really any team that wants to just have a level of awareness about their productivity. I mean, the biggest problem, and proponents of social IT always like to drop the email bomb. Like, we save all this email. Well, no. I've worked in a couple big companies that had social IT, and you don't save the email, right? You get just as much, right? It doesn't eliminate it. And unfortunately, the other sad thing that no one ever admits is most corporate IT social features, so like these activity streams, that's what chatter is, an activity stream, they don't actually get used because people just spam them, right? Look at this, look at that, and it's just silliness, right? One of the things that these companies do, and when Salesforce is done with chatter, and we have a relationship with Salesforce at BMC, is they have these algorithmic things, so that you can actually see how important you are on chatter. Now, if my boss said to me, you know, your importance on Chatter is tied to your compensation, then I probably would post a lot to Chatter, and you would think that would fix the problem. But it doesn't, because algorithmically, just posting a lot doesn't get you anything, right?
No, but it would teach you how to, excuse me, but not to jump ahead, but it teach you how to interact. I mean, if there's a reward,
For good interaction.
After a while, I realized, just pumping stuff out is not going to pay off. I'm not becoming more important. How do I do it? So I started to look at the other monkeys in the clan, right? So,
What is Alpha?
Yeah, and Alpha. So you start to behave. So, what is that?
It's a tiger for Alpha. Did you not notice I brought animals for today's show?
No, you have more animals than I do. All I have is a zebra and an elephant.
Yeah, but we'll talk about Chris's zoo on another show.
Okay. Now, but I think you illustrated quite well how you can change behavior, and yes, it takes time, but there are different tools and the best part is that the tools today have the behavioral change or capabilities built into them, like the reward and so on. And people can take advantage of it.
Yeah, and some people respond to the reward. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people who go to trade shows who get excited about winning an iPad. But to me, there is no amount of information. Now maybe 100 iPads. I would give you my phone number and email address. But it would be 100 iPads to get that. So I think some people, the reward of the badge system is enough. But for other people, there's a layer that, again, in enterprise, if you look at work.com, right? That's out of Salesforce. There's a layer that we just don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the resistance is other than sheer fear. And that layer is we are measurable, right? So, I talked about this
on... What do you mean by that?
Well, I talked about this on Google Plus the other day, and people lost their minds. So, basically, you've got systems like Clout, Peer, Index, and Credly measuring you for being really good at posting pictures of your cat on Facebook. You've got over on this side, you've got Chatter and Work.com and Saba in the enterprise. And again, there's nothing stopping us from harvesting, not us, but there's nothing from stopping an enterprise from using SAP to harvest user usage data and then determining who's putting an algorithm and saying that you're using it right. But right now, let's not worry about SAP. Right now, Chatter has this in it, right? When you post something, people react. So you're being measured here at work by an algorithm. Externally, you're being measured for your ability to handle cats. But in the middle, right, you've got LinkedIn now with these kind of micro endorsements. Yes, you know about this skill. Yes, you know about that skill. So in some ways, we've outsourced our ability to be relevant in these three different areas of life. So your ability in the future to determine what you're good at doesn't belong to you anymore.
But not to sound existentialistic here, but that is not a new concept per se.
I think it's
hell is others. Isn't that a little bit what we're seeing here?
Yeah, but except it's like what happened yesterday or a couple days ago with Tesla in the New York Times, right? The New York Times writes this scathing article, and Tesla goes, "Actually, we had the data from the car. You're lying." So we don't have that concept in the enterprise. Well, we do. I mean, I don't know why we're fooling ourselves. We do have that, and we're going to see that start to happen. Now, is that going to make social adoption bigger, or like you asked for? Is that going to make the time frame shorter? I don't know. But the one thing it is going to do is it's going to teach people that you just can't behave like you want. You just can't share just anything, and who you have relationships with in the enterprise in a world where you spend most of your day walking around like this. Right? Who you have these relationships with is quantifiable, and I think that's really what's going to make the big difference in pushing social IT over the edge. Right now, a lot of people want to use the buzz term. They want to create products, but you just can't create a product and call it social IT and not consider the human factors. What have you not learned in 20 years of going to conferences that makes you such a bonehead? I have no idea.
No, I do believe social media harnessing the human factor, and collaboration will prosper on a platform like this. And with that comes knowledge transfer, which is a human trait that we haven't really done a good job with. For example, if you look at an enterprise compared to a military organization, a military organization has a wonderful flow of knowledge transfer. In an enterprise, it's nothing but silos, right? So I think this platform can help us.
Why is that, if I can ask? I've never been in, have you been in the military, or do you just know this because you study military?
No, I just know it.
You just know. You're not going to tell us why the government would come out. Would a drone attack your hotel right now if you told me?
Most likely.
Okay, then I won't ask.
But I think it has to do with something that people tend to correlate, and this is a little bit what bugs me about social media is that you can argue that in the military you need it for survival, and then you can argue that social media has taken off like it has. I mean, if you look at the behavioral changes, whether that was built on top of a better understanding of the online world thanks to the internet, whatever it is, we have never seen anything like this in a while. I mean, anything, forget about grandma to a child using it, it's spreading across the world, and it has an impact on the world. People say, oh, it's because people love to connect. Where in history has we ever proven that we want to connect? So that's an anthropological premise that is not true in any shape or form. So my question: why is it so successful? Why?
Because people are perverse in their desires to be seen and heard, and it's like the it's like the mom who's on welfare who spends the last bit of her welfare check buying lottery tickets. Yeah. She might win. You might create the viral hit of the year. The problem is it's only going to last about a day. And that's what social media is. It's a perversion of humanity in an augmented digital form that's just not going to exist without some really stringent algorithms against it. If we look at what happened with the proliferation of websites between 1996 and 2002, again, it was perverse. There were websites for every crazy thing in the world. You could put up a website for your mother's lawn, right? But that didn't make the website relevant. It didn't make the web more useful. What made the web more useful was the ability to find that information. And Google did that. And how did they do that? They did that with an algorithm. And again, all of these things, one thing that's not going to happen is social IT is not going to stop, right? The ability for people to connect and share random bits of information that hit their head every day, that's not going to stop. It's only going to keep exponential. What is going to happen is the algorithms that target those connections. And that's, again, people just need to really understand that you have a relationship with every piece of your work. If you're in an IT department or in any other part of the organization, you might have a project that you update, in some type of document, but then in that project you've got deliverables and all of those things, right? So there's an information hierarchy. There's an information configuration management database, right? There's a human configuration management database in these connections. And when those things start to fall together, and you can actually see those relationships in real time, which you can right now. I mean, you can log onto your phone. Why did Apple decide to create something with all these different little apps for me to go into, right? Why are there hundreds of these little screens for me to go to? Why isn't there just one, right? Yeah. It's because you want to move around and you want to connect these things together. You're spot on, and I think people need to be very, very careful when they talk about social IT inside their organizations. People don't want to connect. That's not a human trait, as you said, but people do want to be heard. So it sounds to some that it's hope. It almost said, not to use the Matrix as an example, but it's almost a delusional hope that if I put myself out there, people will like me, or I will be noticed, or I will have my value as a person will increase. Yeah, and it is very much Matrix-like, and I think we're going to see more people talking about those concepts this year and next year, only because it was one thing when we sat in front of a computer like this, but now that I can get up and take this with me, like I could have this hang out on my phone and walk around the house, right? Now that I can take it with me, then it really does become a second world for some people. I mean, some of the first things people do when they log into Facebook, or if they log into Twitter, or if they log into LinkedIn, they log in anything. I call them systems of distraction. If they log into any of these systems of distraction, the first place they look is the notifications button. They don't look for new information. They look for who mentioned me, right? And that's a reality. That's a reality, right? So, when you're looking at social IT initiatives and you're looking at tools, you're looking at processes, be conscious to build in systems of distraction. Systems of distraction are what need to help, if you want to use the term, adoption, right? And right now we just don't have that. And I think, the distraction layer is going to come between the algorithmic layer, but Alf Zoo in June 2014, the conversation we're going to be able to have without people wondering what are they talking about is going to be really radical. And I think again, I'm young. I have to have a job for another 30 years probably, if not 40. I need to understand this. Yeah. And to think that you're safe in your job today with your understanding of how to use Microsoft Office and send an email is kind of pedantic and myopic in looking toward the future. And for some of these people who are out there screaming, oh my gosh, you've got to embrace all these social tools and do all that, that's just as bad, right? Because no one has time to do that. But we need to be realistic.
Why are you so interested personally in social media? What is it that it gives you?
No one's ever asked me that. You might have to edit the Alf Zoo. Gosh, why am I so interested in it?
Yeah. Because your passion is what made you good at it, and what made you good at it keeps thriving, right? So but it must have started somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's a really personal question. But I think I can say honestly that the reason it interests me so much is I am fortunate in a very hyper-connected small industry to be able to use what little influence I have to advance other people. If social media had no way for me to promote and move forward and empower the people around me, I wouldn't be involved in it. But the minute I knew I could take and create and make people and elevate their message, and then that's why I do it. I mean, there's no two bits. There's no confusion. I mean, it's very obvious what I do. If you look at all of my behavior, it's always about promoting someone else. Now, I happen to be at the center of it. I wish that wasn't true. I wish I could do it secretly. I wish I could make someone like Rob England 100 times more popular than he is now, and he could rule the planet. But it doesn't work that way. Digital life has a hierarchy just like organic life, and because I can't instantly make someone popular and they have to do some of this work on their own, it creates a continual service improvement in the information exchange that is absolutely, in my mind, more beautiful than anything I've seen in humanity, right? It's nice when you're Bill Gates and you can solve polio, but nobody has Bill Gates' money. So how do we do this at a hyper-information level? And I think for me, to answer your question, that's why I love it so much, is because I'm able to every day give back and share with somebody something. And
you don't feel that you are outsourcing your human value?
Of course I am. I have to learn my human values every day. I mean, there's a major transfer of trust when I endorse someone. And there's a lot of regret when they let me down. But I have to do it if I believe this is the world we're going to live in for the rest of our lives. And I think we're foolish to pretend that the world isn't absolutely nightmarish in 5 years with how everybody's creating content. I mean, what happens 3 years when there's 50 Alf Zoos?
There can only be one.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes.
No, so the reason I ask you, and it is a little bit of a personal question, because social media has been a tool for the people, by the people, and it's really been pure from the moment in Tunisia.
Think about it this way, because you were going to bring up Tunisia.
Yeah, a little bit like that.
So think about it this way: if you were the U.S. government and you wanted to support an insurgency. Just literally, I want you to really think about this. What would be the fastest way to support an insurgency? Sending 1,000 guns into a country, let's say 10,000. 10,000 guns into a country, or 1,000 mobile phones.
Well, the mobile phones, absolutely. I mean, in Soviet Union, for example, in regions like Kazakhstan, where they don't have electricity and running water always, and they made sure they have electricity and a television set in every single house so that the government could always reach them with their message. So yes, So to have a message that is agile and always present, it's the basics of propaganda.
So if you take a mobile phone and you realize it's got more insurgency power in a country that's being in revolution than a gun, right? Because one gun, yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely horrible what one gun in a war-torn country can do. But 10 people recording that incident fixes the issue much more quickly, right? CCTV, is a crime deterrent for some people, right? Well, I'm going to be on camera. I'm not going to do that, right? There's cameras in cabs. I would love to see the stats on So, yeah, there's a trade-off. There's a very 1984 trade-off about all of this, right?
But the trend is becoming more slanted towards a commercialized channel, where in the beginning it was fun. It was it was anarchy, and there was people having fun, and then it grew and it took on enormous power, like Tunisia. And now the companies, and God knows what the governments are doing, but what the companies are now take hold of, you have promoted tweets, you have Facebook ads. Is this the beginning of the end of the social media platform? Because once they go in and fix it with their enterprise savvy, it's all over.
I don't know if the I don't know. I mean, I never think anything is the beginning of the end. I think everything's always the end of the end. Because there's a very good possibility that technology is advanced far enough that what you're watching right now and your actual life is a simulation, and this is just being replayed for someone's amusement. And I think if you come at life from that point, you'll have a lot less problems. But the commercialization of social media hasn't ruined it. It's only reinforced the same belief system I've had before, and that's you really have to be careful about who you connect to and who you loan your trust to. When you connect to someone on LinkedIn or you follow someone on Chatter, right? Let's just say you're in an organization that has Chatter. You're basically saying, I implicitly endorse this person. And no matter how much advertising there is around this sort of stuff, every time you give away that level of trust, you've been advertised, you've sold out more than having a million ads or sponsored tweets the minute you follow someone. Right? So it's going to drive home, I think a very important thing which we've lost a lot, and that's trust. The reason there's so much money being pumped into social media for the types of programs you talked about is because no one reads anybody's email.
Is email ending?
No. People still shoe horses, and we've got bullet trains. I'm sure someone thought as soon as they sell a Model T that horseshoeing would go away. Well, now we've got cars and planes and bullet trains, and we still shoe horses. Email will not go away. It's just one of those things that.
Will it be as irrelevant as horseshoeing?
Yeah, I think it's that irrelevant to me now. I mean, it's just. I've got a tongue-in-cheek. I tweeted out a few years ago that I had this SLA, and I said, if you email me, I'll get back to you in 5 days. If you call me on the phone, I'll get back to you in 1 hour. If you mention me on Twitter, I'll get back to you in 30 minutes. If you text me, it's 15 minutes. If you instant message me, which means you've got access to me privately, it's 5 minutes. And if you direct message me, it's 2 seconds. So, I just think, again, if you look at these systems, not as social media, but systems of trust, then they start to take on a new dimension and they make a lot more sense. Again, I don't friend everybody. I don't link into everybody. I don't follow everybody. That's not because I don't love everybody. I love everybody. I'm a very loving person. But my attention is worth a lot, and I only have so much. And I think that's what we're seeing, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's an unfortunate thing because some people aren't going to make that shift. They're just going to keep pumping out content and being irrelevant and just crazy because please listen to me, please listen to me, please listen to me. But once you value the people in your life and they start to do good things, you'll give them that trust, and that's really what the enterprise needs. The enterprise doesn't need innovation. The enterprise needs trust.
And the enterprise doesn't need innovation. The enterprise needs trust.
Exactly.
And from trust stems innovation and other good things.
From trust stems communication.
Good. Very good. Well, with those wise words, we're going to leave today's zoo. Been a pleasure to talk to Chris and his animals about various aspects of social IT. Next week, we're going to have Tony Myers, product manager in the on-demand world, who's going to talk a little bit more about things that you need to think about as you transition from an on-premise to an on-demand solution in the service desk there. Chris, thank you. I hope you have a good time, and hopefully we'll have you again. For the rest of you out there, be safe. Take care.